Tim O'Connor, thank you so much for joining me on the Cook's Table podcast today. It's a real pleasure to have you on the show. And yeah, we've got a little bit of a history together in some different contexts, but fast forward to the point where I've jumped out on my own and started this show or whatever. Wouldn't have expected it for us to be in this room together like this, but I'm very, very grateful that it's happened and for your willingness.
Oh gosh, I'm just honored by the invite, and I just hope I can add value to not only you first and foremost, but um anyone who wants to jump in and listen to this. So, and that's my goal. So, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Well, before we get too far into the meat of everything, why don't you take a minute and introduce yourself and give us an idea of who you are, maybe a little bit of your career journey, how you got to where you are, and what you're currently up to.
Yeah. Well, how much time do we have?
We'll unpack it. Let's go.
So, my name's Tim O'Connor. I am a value acceleration guide and advisor for CEOs of $5 to $100 million organizations. Is really where I've wound up to be my sweet spot. And so that isn't something that you jump up in first grade when they say, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" I didn't even, you know, what does that even look like? A brief overview. I am a broken down golf professional. I taught for Mr. Palmer at wound up in my golf career, teaching for Mr. Palmer at Bay Hill in Orlando. Got out in 2000, found myself, I moved across the country. I was in Silicon Valley, for my very first like non-golf job in sales. Had no idea what I was doing. None. And they said, "Hey, you need to sell, as many of these, electronic keypads as you can possibly sell. That's your mission." I said, "Okay, cool." Well, I pick up the phone to the now obviously long gone CEO of Office Depot, who just happened to be one of my golf students, and said, "Hey, man, I got this thing. I don't even know what it does, but what do you think?" And he goes, "I want you to send me everything you got." They cleaned out the inventory. They got it into every distribution warehouse, all their catalogs. I'm on the road training, and it was incredible, right? I'm like, sales is easy. This is great. And so it took me a while to figure out that that isn't how you're supposed to really do it, but I figured it out along the way. Moved back to Atlanta with my wife now of 26 years, and back to Atlanta. Headed up business development for the West Coast for another company here. Started getting into sales and marketing. Then eventually started to run companies, then portfolios of companies, then started my own companies. I always laughingly say, but not really that unserious. I've started companies, I've grown them, I've crashed them. I feel like I've done everything in between for myself. But really, it's been quite a journey. Along the way, we had two boys that are now in their mid-20s, starting their careers off, and that's just been the joy of our lives to watch that. Um, Boys are different than girls. You measure the success of raising boys by the number of emergency room visits, right? So if you can keep it below 12, then you're pretty good. So mission accomplished there. Um, but on the business front, I just really found myself I'm a growth person. I'm a revenue, I'm a business development, I'm a market penetration, market developer, product developer. I'm built like that. And I've been able to do it for small companies, Fortune 500 companies, celebrities, with some interesting products across the board and along the way globally. I've just been so blessed with the opportunities that have been in my pathway. So now I get to do that as an advisor and go back into the marketplace and share um, best practices and lessons hard fought won with CEOs and their leadership teams along their journey to growing the value of their companies.
That's fantastic. I have a couple of things I want to double click on in what you just said there. First of all, the golf story. Did you grow up playing golf? I mean, I'm assuming if you were if I heard you right, and if you mean what you say, you were a professional golfer at one point, which means that, you put a lot of time into it at some point along the way in your life, early on, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so I didn't grow up playing golf. I
Okay.
didn't really start playing until I was 18, kind of thing.
Hmm.
I missed that whole, fun junior time.
Wow.
Um, but then, and I didn't play for a living. Those are like professional golfers you see on TV. Um, I was a golf professional, so I was in the business and I started in operations, but really found my stride in teaching
Okay.
golf. So working with a lot of wonderful amateurs, a few people who played for a living, some at an extremely high level.
Hmm.
They taught me way more than, I pretended to teach them for sure.
Wow. Wow. Was there an initial moment where you just kind of fell in love with the game when you started at 18?
Yeah. um, yeah. So golf is a love-hate relationship and that continues to this day. It's probably, I think, it's the most complicated, most difficult game ever invented by humans. And I'm happy to stack up anything on somebody for that debate. Um, but I found it wasn't necessarily just for the love of scoring well. I mean, you can pick any challenge to do that, but it's the process. It's the journey. It's the highs and the lows. That's what I really fell in love with and was attracted to.
Hmm.
The interesting thing is I didn't realize it until years later that teaching somebody a really complicated thing in as simple way as humanly possible, that I learned, that was conditioned into me with years in teaching golf. That translated beautifully into guiding business owners to keep the main thing.
Hmm.
Simplify, clear the decks, reduce the noise. Why are we focused on this at a leadership team level when we really need to be looking at this? So that didn't really resurface until much, much later. But it's been wonderful.
Yeah, that makes sense. At what point along the journey for you, I know you did so many different things, did you realize that advisory was the next step? I mean, how recent was that transition, and yeah, what were the precipitating factors with that?
Yeah. So the precipitating factors is with me becoming an advisor is coming to the realization after many attempts that I'm virtually unemployable. So
Nice.
I I just see too much. I kind of it was difficult to work for people who didn't, you know, not that they're bad, not that they were this, not less than it. They were just on a different deal. They were, and so it was. I had a very difficult time staying in that lane, working like that. And so, and God made me in a kind of an interesting way, like He does all of us, right? And so, uh, um, so turning out to advise was a little bit of necessity. I had to feed the family.
Yeah.
Uh, but at the same time, I find so much joy in working with more people other than just my internal team with helping us get better.
Hmm.
It's probably the most selfish thing I do.
Gotcha. Okay. Of all the things that you have done, do you have a favorite, like, chapter along the way where you look back and you go, that was a really fun time, particularly fun time?
Yeah, I come back to my own entrepreneurial journey on a couple of things. My wife and I started an apparel company. We had that for 12 years before we sold it.
Okay.
Growing that from an idea into having our brand across 3,000 retail locations in five different countries. Um, that was so hard. My wife and I had what we now affectionately term the 2 a.m. boardroom meeting every day. Like we would shoot out of bed. Are you asleep? No. Are you asleep? No. Okay, let's talk about blah, 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 blah. I mean, when your house is on the line, you put your house up for collateral. You don't know how you're going to make payroll in 24 hours. You just learn how to sell yourself out of that. We never missed a payroll, and we kept the house. But you really understand who you are
Hmm.
when all of the trappings of everything else is stripped away, and it's just you, and you're down to your faith, you're down to your belief and your mission, and you're down to a core group of people that believe what you believe, and you're in it together. I mean, there's something so primal and so satisfying about being there. And it transcends, you know, so many other things, and it really adds perspective to everything in your life, or at least it did for us.
Sure. So it sounds like your wife is also very entrepreneurial. What was she involved in many of the ventures that you have been a part of over the years?
Oh yeah. So, well, at least in particular that one.
Okay.
She was our lead designer, our concept, the creative force behind that brand. And I always affectionately say I built the brand as a love letter to my wife.
Hmm.
And so it was a women's apparel brand. It was empowering, that audience. It was, but it was really just me saying how much I love you.
Wow.
And other women just really picked up and resonated with that. And I kind of felt bad for a lot of husbands, right? Why don't you do that for me? I'm like, no, 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 it's not that. But yeah, I affectionately call her my barn cat, right? She's a cat, but don't bring her inside. Don't try to give her a bath. No, she'll scratch you. Just let her go. Just let her wander. She'll bring back something really cool.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
but yeah,
I feel like that's unique. I don't know that every couple gets to experience that together like that, partnership in business and actually do it and pull it off well, because it can be a challenge as well, I'm sure.
I would not recommend it for most couples. I just wouldn't.
Okay.
It, it's a rare mix. We recognize that fully. And it's very difficult to compartmentalize, you know, who am I? What am I doing? Your identity, and this is true for like most people, our identity can become what we do. And that is so not who we are.
Right.
That we are who God made us and designed us to be. And we have a purpose around that. Our job really in life is to discover what that is. I'm a, you know, that's the cornerstone of our faith. But then who am I as, fill in the blank title at work? Who am I as a husband? Who am I as a wife? Who am I as a parent? As a friend? And so compartmentalizing everything, being kind, uh, you know, with candor,
Hmm.
and coming from a place that is for the other person. That's hard enough as it is, in a relationship, much less a marriage, much less a married partnership.
Sure. Sure. What do you think that, I mean, it's the next obvious question, I think, along this, and not something I expected to ask, but I think, as someone who is hoping to be married one day and certainly in that pursuit, what do you think are the keys to a marriage that allows for that? And yeah, I mean, both actions be taken maybe, but then also you said that this is your words, unique mix, I think, of like, or a unique combination or something like that, where it's, you guys kind of fit together in the right way. What do you mean by that, or what does that look like?
Yeah. So I get asked from time to time. I also ask people who've been married longer than me. I don't care if it's a year longer. What's your secret?
Sure.
Um, I think we come back to a couple things. One, marry your friend. Be friends first. Be best friends. Um, then learn how to laugh, not only at each other, at yourself, at everything. The more serious we take things, then, the more expectations we have. The higher your expectations are, the more disappointment you're going to experience in life. And it's not that, I would ever propose, nor would my wife, don't have any expectations out of your spouse. There's the baseline, right? But the less of those expectations you can place, then the happier you're going to be, the more grace filled you're going to feel, the more grateful you're going to feel. And you're able to at least we're able to wake up every day and go, I really, really, really want to be married. What do I got to do today, to do that?
Hmm. Wow.
So
Yeah. No, that's great. I love that. Very inspiring. Um, Yeah, I think we've covered a lot so far in terms of your entrepreneurial journey. But I would love to go back even before maybe age 18, if there is a story here. But was there a moment earlier on in your life, or maybe midway through, where you were like, I really think this is for me? You also mentioned, I guess, you'd come to understand the fact that you are virtually unemployable, which is an interesting way to say that. But I mean, what was that like, coming to that awareness? Like, at what point along the way did you did it dawn on you that, like, this is for me? This is really what I'm meant to do.
Yeah. So I was raised by probably the strongest woman I've ever met, which was my mom, single mom, four
Okay.
kids. Not the textbook type of life that my mom had. We lost her, a few years ago, but being raised by a single mom who's trying to hold down three jobs at the same time meant that you had a lot of alone time, which was, I didn't know any better, right? So that's cool. I mean, we grew up with like nothing.
Sure.
And so I didn't realize that other kids didn't sleep in cars, or that, that you didn't see your one parent, and that, who's this man coming in, bring your kid to work. What is that? That's a dad. What is that?
Hmm.
And so, raising yourself, I mean, again, I wouldn't recommend it, but you learn things about yourself. Let's just go figure this out.
Yeah.
I want this. So how do I do that? I need to be disciplined enough, at least a little bit self-disciplined, to kind of wander in when the street lights come on, right? For anyone younger than me, that was a thing. That was a real thing. It's not just a meme. Yes, I fed myself. Yes, I drank out of a hose and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you just kind of figure it out on your own.
Sure.
There's no team. And so for me, and there's obviously many people that grew up like that, but for me, that translated into self-sufficiency, selfishness, self-centeredness, bullheadedness, thinking ahead. All those things formulated, a little bit more of who I am, and I think in some ways prepared me to do that
Hmm.
in the world of business.
Hmm. Yeah. Makes sense. Um, what do you think the entrepreneurial journey has to offer you that you like the most? What appeals to you the most about entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so that's always an interesting word to me, the E word. Um, I'd love to hear your definition of entrepreneurship.
Oh man, that is a question I have not been asked before, but I think is really important because I talk about it a lot. So when I talk about entrepreneurship, I think what I mean is the ability to go out and start things, and the boldness and courage that it takes to create something that wasn't there. So entrepreneurship could look like um, both for profit and nonprofit. I mean, I've had entrepreneurial people on who are in the nonprofit space as well on this podcast, and yeah, I actually heard somebody say, I think it was Arthur Brooks, a couple days ago. I was listening to a podcast with him on it, and this was another really cool take on it. But he was like, the most entrepreneurial thing you can do in life is to start a family. And I
Mm.
thought, what a beautiful way to say that. But I think in a sense, we all have a little bit of entrepreneurship in us. But I think within the business world, it's probably, like creating something that wasn't there before.
Yeah, I would add that there are far less expensive entrepreneurial ventures you can try than starting a family.
Yeah.
A lot less capital intensive opportunities out there. Okay, I'm kidding. So with that said, I'm curious. Can someone be entrepreneurial working for someone else?
Mm. I think by the technical definition of entrepreneurship, 100%. Um,
Hmm.
I guess the broad definition that we're working with here, which would be, starting something from nothing. There's plenty of organizations that need entrepreneurial people inside the organization. I also think that my definition of entrepreneurship entails, or um, yeah, it entails personal risk, or at least I associate that with entrepreneurship.
Hmm.
Whether right or wrong, I think that's another data point of how I'm looking at it as I talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up risk. And an important distinction for me. And when I start thinking through that lens of entrepreneurship and what it means, um, risk mitigation is different than risk avoidance. And so if you can, and some people are more or less sensitive to risk, naturally, that's how they're hardwired. Um, the people who are less uh, paralyzed, if you would, by risk, taking a risk, you tend to see them starting things new. Some are even built to say, you know what, we're just going to take a flyer. If this fails, no big deal. We'll start another one.
Right.
Some along that journey on that spectrum say, you know what, I think I've thought through all of the downside repercussions of this. I think we can move forward because I still see the opportunity. Further down that risk spectrum, it's this could happen. And I don't like that. That thought paralyzes me. So it is going to be safer to either go into some kind of a business with everything buttoned up for me. I don't have to do anything different than execute, right? Et cetera, et cetera. And I see a lot of franchise type models work extremely well with that,
Sure.
where it's more about execution. And then at the extreme end is don't even talk to me about doing anything different than what I know is already here, what I'm doing, and I can master that. Everything else, I have no idea what you're even talking about.
Sure.
So that's just the risk spectrum that I've seen, at least in my experiences.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess going back to the question then, under that definition for you, of, starting something from nothing or whatever, what about that fits you, appeals to you? Like why is that something that you pursue other than like what you've already said about it's kind of in your wiring, you're born and bred to do it to some degree. Is there something else that's like, man, I just love getting up every day and doing this because of X?
Yeah. So for me, I'm in many ways, I'm on that other end of the spectrum, all gas, no brake.
So
Um,
very comfortable with risk based on what we were just talking about.
it's less about being comfortable and it's more like just slipping on, a comfortable jacket
Okay.
or whatever, right? Because I'm just built to say, I'm that on that end that says nothing ventured, nothing gained, but what other opportunities is no one else seeing that I may be able to potentially fill
Sure.
without, a lot of, you know, damage going on up there. And we'll take a flyer. And if it doesn't work, then we'll go to the next one. Um, and so that's just how I'm wired. And the reason I say it may be detrimental is because I don't always understand what it actually takes to implement.
Mm.
That's a secondary, possibly a tertiary consideration for me,
Hmm.
which makes the case for I have to have great partners and great people around me to shore up those blind spots that I naturally have.
Sure. Sure. That's great. This question is somewhat semi-related, but I'm sure you're familiar with Simon Sinek's book, Start with Why. It's kind of another frame to look through the same kind of line of questioning, I guess. And I just honestly, to explain why I ask these questions like I do, I think, I have gotten really curious about what it takes to pull off what I determine or what I've described as entrepreneurship well as I, lean into it myself and, as I seek to build a podcast that, um, empowers and encourages the next generation to do it as well and say, hey, you can do this, like it's not too hard, it's not too out there, like you've got all that it takes. And I think both hardwiring is interesting to me, but then also motive and why
Right.
people do what they do. And so for you, what's your why when you think about what you do day to day? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What's Tim O'Connor's deal there?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me that, and I never have a great answer for that.
That's
And
fine.
so I know, thanks, Andrew, appreciate it. So, um, and I'm in serious. I have thought about this a lot, and it's always interesting. Is there an overarching why for what
Sure.
I do? Um, well, as Simon Sinek would, I hope, advocate for, if he's watching, hi Simon. Um, if you're why statement isn't framed as a belief first, then it's difficult to explain that why in a sense or in a way that may resonate with other people who attract the people who believe what you believe,
Hmm.
and sometimes even repel the people who don't believe what you believe. I'm a big believer in that. Um, so if I had to pick something more or less on the fly for a personal belief statement, it would just say that um, I believe that, as it relates professionally, I should say, I believe that everyone deserves to work for a great leader and within a great company. I believe that. And if that's my why, which really it is, and I'm glad this was recorded because I'm going back to that later. I may get a tattoo, don't know.
Let's go.
Um, let's go. If that's true, then the question will becomes, well, how do you help them do that? And the answer to that, kind of the next ring out sort of thing, is, well, it's through a combination of best in class tools that either I've created and or have adopted, stolen, right? You could say it that way, but that I bring to bear with these conversations and situations, on a regular monthly or quarterly cadence. So the what is the outside ring, with Simon Sinek. So what do you do? Well, I'm value acceleration advisement services.
Sure. Yeah,
So
I've gotten all kinds of answers on that question. I mean, one of my friends who I've had on, actually, he's another CPA, and he was just very blunt. He was like, I want to make money, you know. And I think I've had other people too who are older than me, kind of look at that question and go, Andrew, like, don't you understand? Like, I just do my work because I need to support my family, or I need to, like, make a living, kind of thing. And I think I've joked with some of those. Like, I'm thinking of one older guest in particular, um, older as in, just not in my same generation. He might be closer to your age or whatever, but like, um,
wait, what are you trying to say, Andrew? I don't know.
I knew I was going to get into that. I knew I was going to. I was walking a fine line there. I didn't. I walked right into that one. Um, I, I think I think there is a perception sometimes, though, that like Gen Z kind of overthinks things, and that's what I was getting from him, where it was
Hmm.
like, "Why are you asking this question? Like, how important really is it to define?" I just need to. I mean, at the end of the day, I just needed to. His comment was like, "I just needed to kind of make a living. I needed to find a way to make some money, and then I kind of found what I love, through that." So
Hmm.
I don't look for any one particular thing when I ask that question. It's always interesting to me to hear each person's
Yeah.
kind of unique take on that and reaction to it, frankly, because not everyone thinks through that lens, and that's fine. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. And thank you for the question. I mean, understanding really what your why is deep down, that is, I mean, if you really believe it, whatever it is, that is what we tend to come back to when the chips are down,
sure.
when nothing's going right, when everybody's told you no, when the pressure's on. If you don't have that concrete, belief in place, then you'll quit. You'll do something different, which will satisfy whatever your real why is.
Mm, yeah. I could feel that for sure I see that in my own journey as well. That's good. Okay. You are a guy who is a, you know, wealth of information yourself and a consultant yourself, and a resource to so many in their business journey. But I think you'd be the perfect guy to ask this next question. What are some of the greatest influences in your life as you have become who you have become to so many, um, as an advisor, consultant, leader, that have kind of shaped you? So I'm thinking books, favorite books, seminars, consultants, peers of yours. What are some of the top ones that you could think of?
Yeah, the book of Proverbs,
Okay.
got to start with that.
Love
I
it.
mean, you really do. It's the original and the single greatest business book ever written.
Hmm.
God's plan for prosperity and how we go about that work element of our life is it's so much wisdom's in that book. Let's not forget work. And I don't care what you believe, but even if you come back to maybe at a high level, even would entertain the story in Genesis around Adam and Eve. If you recall, God created work before the fall of man. Work is of God. Work is good. Work gives us purpose that
Mhm.
is beyond ourselves. That's how it was originally designed. So if that's the truth, then it becomes, well, what am what type of work is there? Because I mean, there's how many job titles? I think the was it 1.8 million job titles,
Wow.
uh, unique and distinct. And so if that's true, that's a lot of guessing I got to figure out, And so how do I get there? Uh, so it's a journey. And for me, I kind of guessed my way through a lot of years. And it wasn't until I got in, with one of the things that I do professionally, there's some communities that I'm involved with now. And this one particular community has such strong personalities, uh, deep, rich experience. I mean, this group is like comparatively really stacked.
Hmm.
And when I joined this group, I mean, I got throat punched, I got punched in the face, I got drop kicked, and don't do that. Why you're doing this? And for the first time, I felt alive. Like,
Hmm.
you mean people talk to people like this who, when you understand how they're actually preferring to be communicated with, this is incredible.
Hmm.
So I went to the dojo, if you would, and it took me several years of a lot of reflection to realize that, yes, I don't have a blind spot. I have a blind state, right? It is like huge. And so I've done so much work, a lot of prayer, introspective looking. How does that express itself? What are the implications? How does that land on others? What do I do about it? All of that stuff. There have been some very influential people, professionals in my life, friends in my life, pastors. Um, some have been extremely successful in business who were kind enough to just take a few moments of their time to drop some nuggets. And man, those are the ones you just really want to, consume and keep. Um, there are others that, as you grow in discernment, they're dropping nuggets, but you're like, thank you. And you just kind of move along because maybe, what they say doesn't quite check out in the real world, or at least in your experience set. And so discernment has grown. Um, but yeah, so it's been a combination of that. Books, of course, the standard stack, good to great, built to last, blue ocean strategy, lead with why, things like that. Patrick Lencioni stuff is absolutely incredible. Um, Strategic coach has been, pretty influential in my life. So a lot of great thinkers.
Mhm.
So yeah, take what you can because you can't read it all.
Yeah,
Find a few people that get you and are willing to invest in you as mentors. Get yourself a great mentor. That was a big lesson for me.
Hmm.
Um, anyway,
How did you go about getting yourself a great mentor for those out listening who are, maybe in college or in their early stage of their career? What does it look like to find a good mentor?
yeah. Well, I'll come back to one of the first questions or earlier questions. Discover what your why is, and then ask them what their why is when looking. And if you get a couple of belief statements that line up or even close, then, ask. This is a number one thing I see with young professionals, young people in general. They just won't ask.
Hmm.
I mean, trust me, if you get a knucklehead like me who's, kind of been around a few places, do you think that I want to keep all that to myself? No. I can't wait for somebody to ask me. I can't wait to be asked for help.
Sure.
Man, I will run through a brick wall to help somebody,
Hmm.
if they're genuine and if they're humble about it.
Hmm.
Um, those are really the requirements. And they will actually put into practice anything that you share with them. Man, the coachability piece is huge, but you got to ask for it.
That's a good word. You mentioned the community that you're a part of. You called it the dojo. I'm assuming that's not what it's actually called. Was that a mastermind group, or what? How would you describe that, or is there a way to give some people some hints on what exactly that was, so they can go find something like that as well?
Yeah. So this was, it's one of the things I bring to market into my advisory practice at Terraform Group.
Okay.
Um, and so, um, yeah, it's fairly specialized in what they bring to market, what we bring to market. It's really more around the psychometrics piece. And so if you get a whole bunch of people that are kind of built like you or tangentially built like you who all know the same thing and they have your chart, you've got their chart, it's game on. I mean, there's no beating around the bush because nobody has time for anything else and it's bam, right to it. Um, Now it isn't all of that because if you walk around the planet Earth just going bam, 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 right? Two things will happen. One is you won't have any friends, right?
Right.
And two, you're going to be playing by your golf by yourself all the time because
Mhm.
so it's the discernment of knowing when and how to approach somebody. What do they need? What motivates them? What do they need that you don't naturally have to offer that you got to dig to lead them? That's really the wisdom piece to any tool that you may bolt on to you as a professional, as an advisor, as a practitioner. Um, Apply what you've learned to the situation at hand,
Hmm.
not just a blanket thing.
So with that, for clarity's sake, this is maybe new to me. I know that you and I have done some psychometric work in the past through different avenues, but um, when you talk about the group aspect of that and the way that you sell that, or the way you introduce that to your clients or what have you, is that basically taking you know um, a profile of a psychometric template or whatever, and just inviting people to be a part of a community with the exact same type of person, so that they can find their blind spots together? Or what? That's what I heard. What? Correct me if I'm wrong there, but that sounds like it would be really really interesting. Just get in a room with a bunch of the people who are very very similar to you, and then work out your issues together.
Are you talking about at this advisory
Yeah, I'm
practice?
talking about I guess
Which
what you're referring to as um, what you offer to your client, what you bring to market.
Yeah, so that is part of the recruiting strategies. They don't want everybody. They just want, the 15% or so of the population who they know statistically would best succeed
I see.
in, the advisory type role, strategic advisor. And that's not just good for them. It's great for the people who are raising their hand who really aren't cut out for that kind of work. I mean, it saves them a lot of mental, spiritual hits and damage because it's not. I mean, like anything else, what we do is not easy. Um, but it but if you're built in a certain way, it's easier.
I see. So what you're saying is, and sorry, maybe I'm a little slow on the uptake here, but I'm getting a framework as we're talking about it. But what you're saying is, it's a bunch of people who have been chosen to be advisors, or have been invited, or have applied, and are in the sphere with you, who are peers of yours, who are advisors, and y'all all tend to be kind of wired the same way. That's kind of what you're referring to.
Yes.
What I was thinking along the lines of was, I wonder if, and I'm thinking about the psychometric, analysis that I've interacted with you before on. I was thinking about, what if of the 20 different personality types or whatever, if that was an offering of, like, hey, we've got all these data points of all these people, like, we're going to invite 20 of you guys who are all the same type to come into a room together, and, like, that's part of your journey of self-awareness, your journey of growth as a leader, as a business person, that type of thing. That's where I was like, oh, maybe that's something that I haven't heard about from you, but as actually as something that you'll offer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you can think of it as that's a way of drinking your own Kool-Aid. So there's a very pretty tight set of requirements or the KPIs, if you would, or measurables around what it means for me to sit in that seat.
Sure.
It's public speaking, it's analysis, data, it's coaching, right? And there's a little bit of a sales aspect to it as well. I don't sell, but there's a sales type of mindset that you have to help people understand and get past their own objections to why they wouldn't do something like that. It's not it's not a push. It's literally a demystification process. And it's really just, laying it out in a math equation when it comes to your people. So that's how they use it on that community. How it expresses itself in the rest of the world, that's where it becomes really interesting, Andrew, is because that is a purpose built team. An accounting team is a purpose built team. A sales team is purpose built. You're going to have, typically, you're going to have people who excel in a certain role with certain KPIs based on how they're hardwired and pre-described and predisposed to understanding their environment, their work, what motivates them, how are they communicating with each other.
Yep.
And so we tend to see kind of your A players, and I have a scale for that, but, they tend to resonate more strongly with that. And the people who are not really built like that have an option now. I can act out of character to act like that, morph, change, modify. And can I do the work? Yeah, you sure can. The next question is, at what cost? How much capacity do you have when you go home for your family, your friends, yourself? How exhausted are you? Is this a temporary thing, or is this congratulations, it's permanent? We actually nailed the name tag into your cubicle. What does that look like? Or if they're not built for it, they know, right? And then we'll tend to find another team where their gifts could be best leveraged. So that's that's the best application for what we do there.
Sure. I am excited to maybe jump back to that topic here in a few minutes, because that's one that I'm very passionate about, and how those types of analysis and data play a role in building teams. So
Yeah.
we'll get there. Last question on kind of the general entrepreneurship side of things before we jump into some of what you really do day to day and get some wisdom from that. If you had a group of maybe college kids who are aspiring toward entrepreneurship, maybe they're either studying entrepreneurship in college, or they're just at that age and they're all thinking, man, I want to start a business. I want to go into that. In addition to what you've already shared, because you've already shared so many nuggets for them to hold on to, what else would you share if you had 30 minutes with them or whatever? What kind of topics would you touch on? What are the bottom lines of kind of what would be the takeaways?
Yeah. So just to frame it, my little pea brain. So the question is, if I had a group of 20 college kids who stated that they want to be entrepreneurs one day, and I had 30 minutes with them, how would I interact with them?
Yep.
The very first thing I would ask is why. Why do you want to do that? And let them wrestle with it. And you're going to hear all kinds of different things. And so that's cool. Second is, when do you want to do that? The when piece is actually really interesting. Because if you want to do it, great. Why don't you let somebody pay you to learn some of the tactical skills and applications? Well, you still keep that dream alive. That's called a paid, internship, if you would, and it's called a career. Some people live there and they remain in that paid internship. Awesome. Do it. But pick up the knowledge that you need, the contacts that you need within your targeted, sphere of entrepreneurship. Build that. Stub your toe a lot on someone else's dime. Would be another thing I would say. And then, finally, and only then can you start to say, well, what
Hmm.
does that even look like for you? Because a lot of people start with the what. They're like, I don't know, because they haven't done the work around the why or the when. And so that it gets discouraging. And then at some point they get into a job, and then time goes on. They're able to pay all their bills on time, which is interesting. They start a family, and then the risk thing starts popping in, right? All of that. And then they just forget about their dream or they give up on it.
Hmm. It feels like a couple things in tension there as you say that. And in one side of on one side of things, there is the benefit to getting paid to learn. But on the other side of it, I'd imagine as you have stated already, you being having a propensity to being all gas, no brakes. There is this energy toward, man, go and try it, go fail, and before you get the golden handcuffs, before get that extra risk with a family involved, or a house or whatever else you've got going on.
Yeah.
How do you balance that for young people?
Yeah, and look, I get it. The American dream is difficult to obtain by younger people right now, just because of pure economics and policies that have, been going on for a very long time, that have finally matriculated into today's reality for them.
Hmm.
My my encouragement is, do not lose hope. Do not lose faith. The one, you're not crazy. Two, this is going to pass, right? And three, you're not alone. The question really will become for this younger generation, I believe, is a couple things. Are you willing to accept status quo? Is that going to define your reality, your happiness? If not, then are you willing to do what it takes, the hard stuff in the interim, to earn the right to go out on your own? The second thing would be, run, great putters. Here comes a golf analogy. First one, so that's not too bad. That took me about 30 minutes. Great putters use the slope when they putt
Hmm.
to make more putts. They don't fight it. And a slope today that is a current reality of who we are and what we're doing is AI. I mean, it's just emerging at the time of this recording. It will be really in the mainstream for, call it, a year and a half, 2 years. And it's exponentially getting more prominent, more leveraged, more misunderstood,
Hmm.
misused, miscast, assigned blame that it isn't worthy of being assigned. In some ways, cast the villain when it actually isn't. That's fighting the slope. So if I had to encourage anybody to use the slope, it would be understand really how to use AI, not just for what should I wear today or what's my favorite cookie recipe. I mean, really use it in a significant way to better yourself, see outside, leverage the current body of knowledge, because that's all LLMs do. They don't invent, they don't create, and they don't have human connection and empathy. AI, as it stands right now, the LLM models won't do that.
Right.
Future iterations may mimic that better, but today, this is where we are. Leverage that and understand and feel the edges of the curve to really propel you from where you're going to be to where you want to be. Just a thought.
I love that. Yeah, it's good. The world is so at our fingertips now more than ever. I mean, I'm sure when the internet came out and the world was reeling from that, that's how people felt as well. It was like, oh my gosh, like we have so much that we didn't have before. Now it's like
Yeah.
we're really bound only by the limits of our curiosity at this point. It seems like, as young people. And I don't know. What I'm curious about, I think along those lines, is what is the future of college, like a typical college education, which I think a lot of people are asking. So,
Yeah, and that's fair. And I think the value of college is going to be directly correlated to the value that a college degree has to a future employer.
sure. Right.
To future opportunists, to market makers. And I think that is going to be, it's obviously, it's a mixed answer.
Yeah.
To larger organizations who have the luxury, if you would, of a ton of headcount, they can absorb, less than, whatever perfect hire. They may place these other benefits on a college education. I assure you, for the people whose circles I run in, the entrepreneurs who just are market makers, they're opportunity creators, they're, the ones that are out there making things happen. College degrees are not that impactful. The real question is, do you have the grit? Do you have the hard wiring? Do you have the desire? Do your core values align with ours, and do you know what you're doing?
Yeah, that's really good perspective for people to hear, and I think you'll find this interesting as well. I was one more point on this question, but I think I was really struck by this yesterday. I was recording another podcast episode with another guest actually, and he's about my age, I think, and has been doing his business for about 4 years. And the way he hires now, this is one Gen Z hiring other Gen Zs at this point, I guess, most likely. I'm assuming he hires people who are around his age, just by nature of the business he's in. But he said this is his hiring practice. Uh, he gives them a problem within the software that he implements that he knows they can't solve, and he says, "Share a screen with me. Pull up your LLM of choice, and I'm going to watch you solve the problem. I'm going to watch what questions you ask, what sequence things go in, and how quickly you're able to solve this problem, and ultimately how effectively." But I thought, what a great, way to say that, way to practice these things. And not every job is going to be like that by any means, but in his particular field, it really does do the job for his hiring process. And I thought, wow,
Mm.
I've never heard anyone say it like that, but I think that's probably going to be more and more prevalent, I would assume.
Yeah, if I can give maybe your viewers maybe an inside track on maybe a bit of a cheat code on how to answer those questions.
Yeah.
Uh, don't just ask, like, I don't know, you're using Anthropic or Chat or whatever. Don't say, hey, how do I solve this problem? Here are the problem parameters. All it's going to do is pull from the general body of knowledge of what it knows and spit out an answer. Preface your prompt by saying, who is the best in the world, at solving this problem? What person? They're going to have more than likely a published, library or body of demonstrating how they've solved that problem. That's when you can take the LLM and say, act like so and so and attack this problem. How would this person do it?
Mm,
You're predisposing the LLM to thinking in a more specialized way other than the general body of knowledge. It can completely flip the answer.
wow. Yeah, that's cheat code. I haven't gone so far as to ask it to, to ask it to tell me who's the best. I have said act like this type of person, but that would be that's another layer. I love that. Love that, Tim. That's great. Um,
So just a thought.
yeah. Okay, well let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your advisory work and your new AI venture. Speaking of AI, you have another company that you're starting recently, and so I'd love to talk about that. So you're an advisor through Pinnacle, and then there's the Profit Shapers. And let me know if I'm missing something there or whatever. But there's two different things that you kind of have your hands in right now. The Profit Shapers is an AI venture, so I'd love to kind of ask you some questions through the lens of both of those, both your experience as an advisor, but then also how you're building a tool along those lines.
Yeah.
Am I missing
Yeah.
stuff?
Well, don't forget the psychometrics piece.
Okay, but that I guess I was lumping that in with the advisory stuff. Would you see that as kind of separate or intertwined more?
Yeah. So think of my advisory practice. The value acceleration practice has kind of two arms, if you would. One is
Okay,
the operating system. How do you do what you do, and how do
right.
you align your talent? The other is who is on your team. That sort of thing. So psychometrics and operating system are under the advisory practice. My new venture, the software platform, is really the underpinning carriage to the operating system.
Love it. Okay, yeah. I think I saw this on both of your websites, both ventures, both of the items we just talked about. But the four obsessions of an effective CEO, and I thought,
Hmm.
man, that would be something that I think my audience would be very interested. That I'm frankly am very interested in. So I'd love to run through them and then talk a couple questions on each of these points as we get time here. So
Yeah.
the first. Create and cast a compelling vision both externally to the market and internally to the team. Second, put the right person in the right seat, surrounded by the right people to accomplish that vision. Third, create and protect the company culture.
Mm.
And fourth, grow enterprise value. So we'll take each
Yes.
one in turn, but I'd love to kind of dive into each one of these and see how you think about these. So first on the vision piece, both internal and external, what does it take to create and cast a compelling vision?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a bit of a loaded question. because some people see more or less. Some people see this, some people see this or this. And so what does that really mean though? So vision is nothing more than saying, this is what we see. This is where we're going. This is, uh, this is the path forward. Some people are naturally built to possess that, right? And so, they're visionary, comes from that type of term. Some people may not be a visionary. They can either hire that vision and or bring in an external component to help provide the vision, say, call it an advisor or a guide, to help them codify that vision. But the vision's very important. Where are we going as an organization? Flags going to be planted on that hill over there, right? That's where we're going. It's the waypoint. It's the destination, not the waypoint. It's the destination we're going. How important is that to understand where you're going if you're working inside of an organization, right? Okay, so I can probably do this, but is that the right direction? Well, if we don't have a leadership team or a CEO who's providing that vision, not just once and not on some banner, not just on a website, but consistently saying, this is what we see. Here's where we fit. Here's our gap. Here's our opportunity. Here's how we align. This is what that immediately directs the work and the thinking of everybody inside the organization is huge. It's the difference between sitting in the ditch, somebody saying, where are we going? I don't know. I can't see over the wall. And then somebody poking their head up and going, oh yeah, it's right over there. That's what we really mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think when you think about the CEOs you've worked with on your own journey? What do CEOs most often get wrong in their vision casting efforts, maybe both internally and externally?
Wow, that's a great question. To me, the biggest gaps I see with my current CEOs, there's call it 40 of them that I currently work with right now. Uh, they all share this is that I can't see that far ahead into the future. I can imagine it. I can even put words around what 10 years looks like, but I have no control over that. That's important as a general landing spot. 3 to 5 years, yeah, I can even, that's a little more clear, but it needs to be, held a little bit more loosely. 1 year, yeah, I can get my arms around that and I can control that, on a quarterly cadence and, to get there, to get closer. So what I see a lot of CEOs doing is getting hung up on the fact that they don't have this clear 10-year thing that says, this is where we're going. And a lot of times I can come into a new leadership team and help at least put more words around that in a way that resonates stronger with their team. But that is still important. And reminding them that it's not supposed to be set in some stone somewhere. That's the general direction and it's okay.
Mm.
A lot of CEOs that I see, that's a brand new concept to them. Well, I mean, I'm looking back and I think we're doing okay. Well, how do you know? Well, because I saw last month's, P&L, balance sheet, and statement of cash flows. Well, that's looking in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
How do you know you're not driving over a cliff? So challenging them to look out the front windshield is it's rare, but when it happens, it's a little scary for them.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing you say there is sometimes it's, I don't know. I guess maybe the follow-up question is, what is more important, the 1 year or the 10 year? I hear you saying the 1 year is more important, but then there's
Yeah.
also like the importance of you giving them that, language for the 10 year as well.
Yeah. So the annual growth plan, which is 12 months, that is king. Once you set that in stone on an annual basis, everything should be driving towards that.
Sure.
Now you don't make that in a vacuum because that has to point towards the 3 to 5 year milestones or what does that waypoint look like, and that should be directionally pointed towards your 10-year vision, right? Your pinnacle of the mountain, if you would. So but that annual growth plan, once you set it, be very stubborn. I mean, unless something out of the blue happens, catastrophic, global events, geopolitical things happen, disruptive technologies are coming to threaten, now we need to play defense. Stick to your annual growth plan
Mhm.
once you have it in place.
Um, so in addition to what you've already said, what are some other strategies that you use related to vision casting that you use with your CEO clients? How do you help them?
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll get in a room as a leadership team when I first start with a new leadership team. If they don't have that pinnacle established, a 10-year mark, then I say, okay, where's this whole thing going? We start literally there on a blank whiteboard and they just write down all these things. And that's always an interesting exercise because that tells us and it reveals either a lack of vision that has been cast to them in the past, right? If we got like 5 different visions from 5 different leaders and the CEO sitting there going, I'm the first time I've ever heard of that.
Yeah.
Well, whose fault is that? Um, or if they're directionally close, then that could be an indicator that at least the CEO is communicating what he or she may have already been seeing.
Sure.
Um, but once you have that, then the sniff test comes. Does this inspire anybody outside of this room if you articulate it? It's such an interesting question. If a vision doesn't inspire anyone, especially the people that it's meant to inspire, we got to go back to the drawing board. And not to pick on a former guest, but if your vision is to make more money,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
so you know what I mean? But
Yep.
if your vision is to say, we believe that every home every house should feel like a home from, when you pull into the driveway to you lay your head down at night, right? As an extension of who you are, as a human being. Talk about an interior design vision.
Yeah.
That's compelling. And talk about driving and codifying everybody's efforts into that. Because if everybody in the organization believes that, that's where we're going. Got it.
Hmm.
So it isn't just write down what you think. I will challenge them to the point where it is fully defendable because how I'm challenging them is nothing compared to how the rest of their people and their clients are going to challenge them, whatever they write down.
Totally. Yeah. So along the lines of this vision casting and this being the first element of the effective CEO, the first obsession of the effective CEO, as you've said, how does Profit Shapers come into this? How does Profit Shapers help CEOs both cast and maybe stay on track with their vision?
Yeah. So Profit Shapers, and thank you for bringing it up, by the way. Just send me the invoice for the promotion. I'm happy.
I love this. Yeah, this is great.
Um, yeah, Profit Shapers is the software which contains and organizes all of the moving parts of an organization along their journey towards growing enterprise value. The vision component, right, is, the obsession of the CEO. Yes, it's their job to do that, but you have to put that somewhere and you have to memorialize that somehow. So that's where advisors, right? This isn't, I didn't build another advisory company. What I built was a company that is really the marketplace for advisors to join. I got to vet you first. Come join the marketplace, right? Because I have clients that need advisors who will guide them along their own journey of filling in all the variables which the platform contains, which is going to keep them all on track. So yes, there's AI layered into, Profit Shapers throughout, which picks up all of the salient data points once they're entered by the client to give them potentially different insights, different way of synthesizing the data that exists, different ways of thinking about things. Yes. Can a client self-implement their way to happiness? Yeah, they can, but you better know what you're doing, kind of thing. Um, is it richer and better and faster with an advisor from the advisory community? Absolutely.
Hmm.
So that's where all those things fit in, if you would.
Yeah. So Profit Shapers in the sense of vision, I hear you say it's like a bit of a container, for that vision. It's a place to memorialize it, like you said, and to reference. And
It is.
having worked with LLMs, even just visualizing how or thinking about how the AI component may work, having worked with some LLMs personally recently around like branding and vision and stuff like that, I can see the need for there to be one source of truth for the AI agent to reference if there is that component in here, which I know there is. And that has to live somewhere. So I'm assuming there's a place within Profit Shapers where you just kind of plant the flag and say this is where we're headed.
That's correct. There's multiple surfaces. Profit Shapers is it's not a single platform. It's actually 10 apps
Okay.
with a central hub, which is really the traffic cop. So it keeps all the common elements across all of the satellite or fleet apps.
Okay.
Each fleet app was specifically purpose built to accommodate and to accelerate a sliver of value growth or value acceleration for an organization, whether it's writing playbooks that are rehearsed and tracked within a learning management system, AI generated, plug in how do we do what we do, whether it's, get work, do work, or get paid, plug all those steps in, bam, AI creates a playbook for you or a series of playbooks across your organization. Those playbooks overlay with AI actually talk to Seed Optimizer, which is built to say, do I have the right person doing the right thing, efficiently as possible, following playbooks, all of that. So the whole ecosystem talks to each other
Yeah.
for clients.
That's so cool. Yeah. I'm sure it'll apply in the next question, in the next line of questioning as well. And I'd love to hear, the other, how another app or two apply to this obsession of the CEO. But the next one is put the right person in the right seat, surrounded by the right people to accomplish that vision. A lot of the word right there, right person, right seat, right people. So how would you describe psychometrics? We already mentioned that. That's definitely something that I know that you have as part of your practice, and I love. Why is it so important to utilize psychometrics when you're building a team?
Yeah, it's such an important question. I had to learn this the hard way many times, many hiring mistakes. Um, so if we think about fit to role is really three concentric or overlapping circles, I should say. And circle one is, what is this person's hardwiring? How are they built, right? How did God craft them, make them? How are they unique in the world? All of that. We've already touched on that. What does that look like?
Yeah.
The second circle is, what is their North Star? What drives them? We could put core values, the organization's core values squarely in that circle, right? How are we expecting you to act when no one's looking, kind of thing?
Yep.
That's the second one. The third consideration is experience. Experience means, relevant, direct experience relative to what we're paying you to do. Could be education. Let's face it, IQ is part of business, right? I don't scale or measure IQ, but that's part of it. Self-awareness, all of that.
Yeah.
And so when you overlap all three of those circles, and this is assuming we've done the work on the front end of what hardwiring do you actually need for this job. Once we have those three circles, anybody who can check all three boxes or fill the overlap of those three, they're a fit for the role. If we simplified that and we just put our talent on a 2-grid axis, on the y-axis going up is going to be, what is your culture fit, right? That's core values. If you
Yep.
don't have those good core values, not 10, not 2. What are the 3 to 5 core values that really reflect who you are?
Yep.
Not who you want to be. That's aspirational, right? Not table stake, like honesty or integrity, or if you're not those things, then you're not going to be in business long. That's not a core value. That's table stakes. Who are you really as an organization? That becomes your filter through which you interview, you reward people, you fire people, you promote, all of that. That's your behavioral axis. Call it a 1 through 10. I'm going to rate this person here. On the x-axis is performance. How do I know what is expected of somebody sitting in any seat in an organization? What do I commonly refer back to? What am I grading their performance against? I'll ask you that.
KPIs or results?
Yeah, it's KPIs. And so if you understand and have driven out your KPIs, which is a whole nother exercise, by the way, um, by seat, then I'm going to scale on performance 1 through 10. So if you just look at that simple grid, and I could write it on the board, but just for this, you can start to put people in boxes: A, aspiring A, A, B, C, D, whatever. That's where you can really lay out your talent grid. So as it relates to the right person, the right seat, you may have somebody that rates high in culture. They're one of us, but man, the seat we got them in, they're terrible at. They just, for whatever reason, either not built for it or they don't have the experience for it. They're just not performing. Is there a different seat in the organization that would be better suited to how they're built or what they know or what they bring? Now, if you have a high performer, but low on culture, it doesn't matter what seat you put them in. No one's going to want to work with them, even though they're crushing it. They're the hardest to get rid of, but you have to get rid of them.
Sure.
Right. So
Well,
anyway, that's how we view right person, right seat. Profit Shapers helps you quantify all of that, assess all of that, measure all of that. Not the psychometrics piece, but the culture versus performance grid.
okay.
That's an assessment.
Another question that I think I've had, and I feel like a lot of people have had as in my circle, as I've described some of psychometric analysis and a broader speaking, more broadly speaking, thinking like workplace assessments of sorts. How do you respond to CEOs you work with who maybe are new to the idea of this type of thing and who push back against the idea of psychometrics because they feel like it puts people or themselves in a box or limits them in some way?
Yeah, it's a good question. So my question back to them is, do you believe that everyone can do anything if they just try hard enough? I'll put it back to you.
Sure. I think I did at one point, Tim. I don't anymore, but
What changed?
self-awareness, understanding that I do have limits myself, and that I'm not wired for everything, and not everyone has their own set of limits and passions, I guess, as well, or good things they're good at.
Yeah, that's correct. There's only been one human being who was perfect at everything. We ain't him,
Right.
right? There are built-in gaps that are by design. So not even wanting to understand what those gaps are, it's usually driven by one of two things in my experience. One is fear. What if I, you know, really understand a gap that I really need not to have, right?
Right.
Whatever that fear could be. I'm afraid of being found out. So it could be fear driven. On the other side, and I see this far less rare, it's almost that lack of humility, almost an arrogance that says, well, I can do anything I want to do. And if I feel that way, then I want to give everybody else an opportunity to do that too. Really? Um, so it tends to be one of those, that's the ends of the spectrum, if you would. And there's lots of stuff in between.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Third obsession of a CEO: create and protect the company culture. What, in your opinion and your experience, separates a truly healthy culture from an average company culture?
Yeah. So culture, that's almost as overused of a word as entrepreneurialism.
Sure. Yeah.
So for me, the way that we break this down, culture is really two axes. It's relationships and it's results.
Okay.
Right. And so there's some cultures, organizations that are predisposed to land on one or the other axis. Some people are more about what are we doing right now? You have 30 days after we hire you to prove yourself. We see that a lot in, PE-backed companies where, they got to turn and burn and produce a return on investment. Then we have other companies, some of which we're both highly familiar with, that it is all about the relationships, right? Hey, we just need to hire more people. Why? Because they need to talk to others. right? And we have meetings and lunch lines and all of that.
Right.
Free daycare, ping pong, and X, Y, and Z, movie night and pajama day. That's cool. But if we don't have the results piece, then the relationship heavy culture, they're going to start to either decline with results and or high five each other in the unemployment line.
Okay.
You got to have both.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So that's how we really triangulate, if you would, into what a company's culture is. Now, the interesting thing is that's a company. A department may have a different culture need. Accounting probably doesn't need to have all the high fives and the Hot Wheel cars on the wherever, right? That may be more results focused. Sales probably want to see them a little bit more on the relationship side, but again, not to be prescriptive, but it's pick your battle. And then it's all down to the individual. Now, if we got a big relationships person into a really big results team, is that really, because all she's doing is going around distracting everybody. So trying to connect.
Yep. Yep.
That doesn't make her a bad fit, just makes her maybe on the wrong team culturally.
Sure. So if you have that results in relationships, like in the right measure, so it's balanced and it's healthy. Obviously, that's something that a lot of leaders want to protect and will give a
It
lot to
is.
protect, right? And you as an advisor, I'm sure will put a lot of effort into helping CEOs protect that. How do you encourage executives to do that protection? And what do they get wrong when they do try to protect it most often?
Yeah. So they tend to overvalue one or the other
Okay.
at the expense of the other. And so this is not business is not black and white. I mean, it's simple, in my opinion. There's only really a few things that you really got to watch out for, regardless of your industry.
Right.
And if you can do that, then, you can have a successful business. But leaders are humans. And if we don't know what we don't know, then we're going to default to, our experience set. And so it's by bringing in data, advisement, coaching, sometimes a foot up the butt, accountability, right? A different way of thinking, shared experience across other businesses in that industry. That's my job as an advisor and a guide,
Sure.
to level set that leader's thinking at the moment. That implies that that leader wants to get better as a leader. 2, they're coachable. And 3, and by the way, the number one leadership quality that we can ever see is humility. If you don't pick up anything else out of this podcast, and if you are a viewer and you've actually made it to an hour 32 or whatever it is, and you only hear that one thing, humility is the number one leadership aspect on the planet. Get more of that.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Good. That's good. Okay. Fourth, as we bring this in for Elaine, fourth obsession of the CEO, grow enterprise value. That is something that I saw significantly on the ProfitShapers website as you've been building that venture. Obviously, I know that's a big part of what you do with CEOs. Why have you made enterprise value the focus of your new AI venture? Why is that so important?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. It's kind of like why is string theory the unifying theory within physics that tries to explain the difference between gravity and quantum mechanics? It has to have a common denominator that ties it all back together.
Sure.
Enterprise value. You show me a highly valuable enterprise. I'll show you the right people in the right seat. Everybody has a purpose that is understood and aligned around the organization, their team, and themselves. They all have meaningful playbooks, which tell them how to do what we're doing, and we rehearse on that. And then we all know what the score is. It's performance. I know if I'm doing a good job, if I won the day, won the week, everybody knows that. You show me that company, I'll show you 4 areas of that business that are very strong. In the absence of any of those 3 or 4 things, that company is not as valuable as it could be. That's why EV is that unifying measurement of an organization and my engagements with them.
Sure, sure. Would you counsel every entrepreneur to pursue enterprise value at the end of the day? Like, is that something that's pretty I mean, it sounds very universal based on the way you just said it, but just to clarify, are there other people who would say, "Oh, no, enterprise value shouldn't be your main goal"?
Yeah. So to be really clear, it's a measurement.
Okay,
It's a sign, right? The more that goes, the more that we know that we are strengthening correctly those four intangible capitals that I just mentioned,
I see.
right? So it isn't necessarily the goal, it's the output. And so the goal is the journey around strengthening those four intangible capitals. Because it's along that journey that you learn so much about yourself as a leader, a business owner, as an employee, your impact to the community and to the marketplace, purpose, legacy. I mean, I come back to the very first thing. We all deserve to work for great leaders. We all do. And highly valuable companies, as measured by enterprise value, they tend to have really great leaders everywhere.
Hmm. That's so interesting, and something that, yeah, I think even when I'm thinking about these questions, I'm looking at it as a goal as opposed to a measurement, and you're reframing that in a very interesting way. But maybe the why is so much more the goal, I guess, at the end of the day. That's what I'm hearing you say. It's not about the bottom line, though it is, but the bottom line is just a manifestation of the why being done right. Is that fair?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, that's the one measurement, if you would, that kind of cuts across all of this.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's great. That's great. So, give us an idea of what's next for your advisory group, but then also what are you really excited about with Profit Shapers? Where do you see the future, as you are the visionary there? So,
Yeah. So for Terraform Group, my advisory practice, what I really see there is just continuing to work with a very select few CEOs and leadership teams. Um, I'm not looking for hundreds because I can't move the needle the way that I want to be able to move the needle with hundreds. I can move it with more of a select, tightly focused group of CEOs and leaders who want to make a difference. That's the fun engagement for me. Those are the ones I'm not chasing you, they're chasing me,
sure.
right? That sort of thing. And we're able to, it's so much fun. On the Profit Shaper side, we literally just launched. And so we have a dozen organizations right now that have been onboarded. What we see there is 1,500 organizations over between now and the next 5 years being on board with that.
Wow.
We see 100 advisors, independent advisors, who all believe what we believe. There's a marketplace there that clients without an advisor can come find the advisor that's for them. And Profit Shapers is literally staying on the cutting edge of latest thinking, the latest breakthrough, the latest tools, all of that for the client and the advisor. So we're just here to make a difference in that $5 to $100 million, target market, so to speak, the S&Bs. And we really believe that putting 25 years of brain damage and experiences as an advisor into this, I think is going to make a big difference.
Hmm.
So we're not just using our imagination. These are hard lessons that have been fought and won, and we want to pass those on to accelerate other people's journeys.
That's fantastic. I'm excited to see what the future holds there and follow the journey. I love asking the question at the end for every one of my guests. Kind of a looking back, looking forward kind of question. What are you most proud of
Yeah.
as you look back? And what are you most excited about as you look to the future? And that could be business, professional, personal, any of the above.
Yeah. So what am I most proud of looking back? Um, Without a doubt, it's my family.
Hmm.
Um, it's not even close. This business stuff is great. It's a lot of fun, right? That's cool. Pays for the vacations, but I couldn't be any more proud of my family, my wife and my two sons. It's just really cool. I have to pinch myself that I get to be front row seat. Trust me, I'm stroking the checks, right? But I pay for that seat. No. But yeah, I'm most proud of them. I'm also really proud of not losing heart along my journey. There's been plenty of times where I could have given up, where I could have just said, this isn't worth it. And I'm talking decades worth of, you know, hard lessons won. I put my family through a lot to get here.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I'm most proud of not giving up, not losing my faith, and not losing my identity in the process. What am I most excited for? I'm most excited to really get ProfitShapers scaled effectively. We want to work with rad people and do rad stuff. That's what we want to do.
I love that.
So yeah, that's what I'm most excited about.
Okay. That's great. Well, Tim, thank you. Thank you for your time today. It's really been a pleasure to speak with you. We have
Uh,
really used our time very well today. We're right at the end of our scheduled time here, and just a real privilege to get your time on a Wednesday. So until next time.
well, I appreciate it, Andrew. And if you get more than 8 minutes after post editing all the gobbledygook, then I'm happy to have participated.
That's
So,
that's great. Thanks for being here.
thank you so much.